You're now tuning in to the Ambitious Views podcast, where we share unique perspectives on storytelling within film and television from the past, present, and future. We're here for a good time, not a long time, so let's get to it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ambitious Views podcast. I am your good old host, Corrigan, and this is my great co-host.
What's up? It's Blaze.
Yo, how you doing, Blaze?
I am great. Long day, but a good day.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. That means you're gonna rest
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I am because got more vacation time coming up. I know that's right.
Must be nice.
It's very nice. It's very nice. But I had too much time, so I had to use some.
That's wild, man.
Mm-hmm.
That
I don't
means that
take
you,
off.
yeah, I see, but that means you need to sign up for more self-care. That's what it sounds like, Blaze.
Yeah.
That's what it
I
sounds like.
mean, when I was in the classroom, I was
Yeah.
so used to not taking off very often because
Mm,
we had like
you have to push
3
through.
personal days and like maybe 8 sick days. I'm rarely ever sick. And I just never believed in taking personal days if I didn't need it because, things come up. And so
True.
I did that for so long that since I've been in higher ed, I'm like, wait, I got to use this time before I lose it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It is crazy, but that's
But
dope, man. I'm glad you're feeling good.
thank
It's
you.
a
How
blessing
are
to
you?
I'm doing great. As we was talking about earlier, I'm back from Disney World. The wife and I went to celebrate our fifth anniversary down yonder in
Anniversary.
Florida. Yeah, and so we had a good time, man. So we went to Epcot, had a great time, got to ride Guardians of the Galaxy, which was dope. So that was a journey within itself trying to get in because you have to make it into a queue, either 7 a.m. or 1 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And literally, I was refreshing the queue on my app from like 6:57 to 7, and I was able to get right on in. And when Audra was trying to do it, I don't know, it's just because she was in my party or not, but 7:01 she was locked out.
Dang.
Yeah, but it was definitely worth it, which we was already up anyway. We had planned on going there earlier. But it was definitely worth it. We had a really great time. And yeah, so happy to be back at this. Really looking forward to what we'll be talking about today
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. For those of you who keep up with very unique stories out there, we got a great one for you today. We're going to be talking about I'm a Virgo, which is produced by Boots Riley, produced, written, and directed by Boots Riley. Again, I think we mentioned it a while back when the trailer came out about our first thoughts on it and stuff like that. And basically, it's about a guy who's like, I think he's like around 19 or whatever like that. And he's 13 feet plus tall, And so,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to be jumping into that. It's a very fun project. And I will say, just for those of you who really are into film and stuff like that, Boots Riley is the one who wrote and directed um, Sorry to Bother You. So, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of gives you a vibe of like the type of storyteller he is and stuff like that. But as always, we got to pop off our episodes with good old this or that. And so this time it is Blaze's turn. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Blaze has because she's had a lot of time to get this together, which, I feel like I breezed through it pretty easily. But we gonna see what you got.
First of all, you didn't have to put me on spot like that to say I had a lot of time because just because I had a lot of time don't mean I used it well.
This is true. This is true. It'd be like that. It'd be like
It'd
that.
be like that. Look, my one of my grad school classes ended last week, so
Mm,
and then the
mm.
new one starts tomorrow. So yeah.
That's
Um,
horrible.
right. Like, can I get a break, please?
Right.
So for the this or that, it's sort of
Mhm.
kind of based off of I'm a Virgo.
Oh goodness. What?
It's not that deep. It's not that deep. But
Okay.
okay. So you can be a superhero who you really don't accomplish what your goal is, to help people. So you got these
Mhm,
powers, but you're
mhm.
really not helping people. So, kind of like the hero.
Yeah.
Or, you could be, just a regular person, an activist, and you have a constant fight to kind of have your voice heard and get what you want done, done.
Hmm.
What do you choose?
To be a hero that doesn't make any impact at all, or to be an activist that continues the lifelong grind.
So like Jones from I'm a Virgo.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna have to roll with, just being an activist, to be transparent, honestly, I feel like that's what I am right now in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
like say for instance, when, a lot of police killings and brutality was being advertised, in a sense, some people say shown, but I feel like in a sense it was advertised because it's been happening on social media. Um, it just wasn't in me to do the marching and all that stuff like that or whatever. It just wasn't me. It's for some other folks, but not me. And so in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of that, I produced a really short, um, I guess like I don't want to say a PSA, but just a motivational short or whatever like that. And I feel like that was my way to be an advocate. And all it really was just uplifting, my people who were feeling uh, the heaviness of what's been going on around us, unfortunately, for a long time. Even as a filmmaker, I always have been wanting to be the person who doesn't get caught up with just creating anything. Nothing against people who want to make things for fun and stuff like that. But just the stories that I grew up with the Fresh Prince, Cosby Show, Boy Meets World, like just the shows in general, and then even Star Wars, there's some really good hidden gems and messages in a lot of those films, Schindler's List, shoot, even Blade to a certain degree. That's why I really like the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, you know what I'm saying? I just feel like for me, I'm very intentional about what I put out as a creative. And it can be in an advocating way in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
so overall, I feel like, that's just the best way for me. And I do feel like it's funny that you asked that, because some people will probably think, well, like it's a no-brainer, why not be the advocate, have a purpose, but people don't even realize that they are acting in their own way of the hero. And I'm a
Mm.
Virgo. They think
Yep.
they're helping. They think they're being a part. They think they're being an ally. Even some of my own people, like they think they're doing it, posting on social media, all this stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing right before you go to bed? Who are you talking about? All those different type
Mm-hmm.
of things. And so and it's funny because one of the episodes in my upcoming series kind of talks about that. So
Oh,
um
dope.
yeah, yeah. So overall, I mean, that's a really dope question. And like we said, we're gonna get into it. I see Blaze has already picked it up different gems in it, which I knew you would. So yeah.
um, Before we move on, you said a couple of things I wanted to comment on. Um, like the whole thing about like being a hero, you think you helping, but you're not. That made me instantly think about Across the Spider-Verse,
Yeah.
Peter Parker, he thought he was helping
Mm-hmm.
Miles, but really he was part of the problem in Miles' sense
Mm-hmm.
or for
Mm-hmm.
his mission.
Yeah.
Um, and then you also mentioned like your form of being an activist. And I'm happy you said that because I think a lot of people, especially when things like police brutality is being what it's big and unfortunately when like those moments happen, they definitely kind of push people to like go get out there and march. Well, everybody's not a marcher. And I
Yeah.
remember when I was in, I want to say my undergrad, and I read a book by Dr. Patricia Collins, and she
Mm-hmm.
talked about the different types of activism and how,
Mm-hmm.
some people go out there and march, but some people are intellectual activists
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they write speeches or they publish articles, or some of them are creative activists, like you.
Mm-hmm.
You make
Mm-hmm.
films to get that message out. And any type of activism that you do is okay as long as
Hmm.
you are trying to do good, you know.
Yeah.
It's when
Yeah.
you try to, it's when you do nothing that's the problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's just having some being intentional about whatever you're doing, you know. And like I
Mm-hmm.
tell people, like I don't knock people that have a good time and create things. I feel like that took I will say I feel like on a maturing level, I had to mature
Mm-hmm.
in that space because what I feel like what pulled me to create, I put that same pressure on other people, especially other filmmakers of color. And I will say
Yeah.
that I I can feel the way I feel aware of like that, but at the same time, everybody's that's not everybody's goal, and it's kind of like you said, it's kind of like the reverse. May want to make a living creating what they want to create and having a good time or doing what they want to do, but maybe the proceeds that they get from it may allow them to be able to advocate in their own way outside of their creative
Mm-hmm.
space. And so that's something I will say publicly that I did have to mature on, as far as just letting people like letting artists be artists. Everybody doesn't art the same way.
Yeah. That's
And
so
everybody
true.
isn't, yeah, and everybody isn't pushed to create in the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I mean, with my series Black Eyed Peas that I'm working on, like this is gonna be the first inkling of any comedy that I've done since my first short film, you know, and that was back in 2015. And so but it's still purposeful, similar to what Boots Riley tried to do with some of his things, and um, Jordan Peele and everything like that. Like there are some hidden things within it, but unlike my other ones that's been a little bit heavy, especially like my short film that I just finished, Freedom's House. This is gonna be a little lighthearted. You may enjoy yourself, but ideally, I am gonna hope that you kind of think about some things when you see it, So yeah, I mean that was a really dope question, and I know we can go on and on about that and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But yeah, man, that's that's a really good one, Blaze. You took your time on
Thank
that.
you. It took just a little bit of time, just a little bit of time.
Just a little bit.
That.
What's on that watch list, Blaze? What you been peeping out?
So last week or Saturday, this past Saturday, I went
Mhm.
to the movies.
Okay.
Went to go see The Blackening. You know, I should have went to go see it Juneteenth because the premise
Mm.
behind the movie is that a group of friends are getting together for Juneteenth weekend.
Um.
They were college friends, and so they get together each Juneteenth and just link
Mhm.
up and have fun and stuff. But you know, they throw in the twist of a horror. It's a horror movie, so kind of like
Mm.
your typical cabin in the woods vibe. But it's
Mm.
a horror comedy, and it is
Okay.
pretty funny.
Mhm.
Um, I think the best way to describe like the horror aspect of it
Mhm.
is it's like say if you were playing the game. Have you ever heard of the game Black Card Revoke?
Yes.
So say if you were playing that game and if you got the question wrong, you would die.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But it's really, really good. I highly recommend people go see it. I saw I guess like an interview that they were doing as a cast,
Mhm.
and one of them, I think it was X Mayo, that was she plays one of the characters, and she said it's a movie where we as Black people can do what we always do with movies, and that's talk back to the screen. And as
Mm.
I was listening to her say that, I was like, that's so true because I was in the movie theater like trying so hard not to talk back to the screen. Like when they would ask one of the questions in the
Yeah.
game they had to play in the movie, I'm
Yeah.
like, the answer is this. And then I'm looking around like, I'm sorry, y'all.
About to
But
get kicked
it's
out.
really, really good. Right. About to get kicked out. But like it was other Black people in there. So they felt my vibe.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
great. I recommend going to see it.
That's dope.
Um we're gonna talk about I'm a Virgo, so I won't really go touch into that. I mentioned earlier that like I was a huge John Cena fan, but also I'm a wrestling fan. And this past week they had a premium live event, pay per view, whatever you want to call it, Money in the Bank. And the only reason why I'm really bringing that up is because one of their biggest storylines, the Bloodline storyline, it hit like a huge climax. And even if you're not a fan of wrestling, I recommend going to YouTube and just type in the Bloodline storyline. It is like an hour long or two video, but when I tell you, it's some of the best storytelling definitely ever in wrestling, but probably just in within the last few years. It's some really, really good storytelling, the layers, the different chapters, so to speak, that they've been able to tell with this bloodline. It's incredible. Like what Roman Reigns and the Usos have been able to do these past 3 years. Like if you're not a fan of wrestling, storylines don't last that long. They're like a month to maybe 3 months. This is a
Definitely not how
storyline
it
that's been
used to
going
be.
on. No, this
Yeah.
storyline has been going on since maybe September of 2020. And it hit a huge climax at Money in the Bank. I mean, basically they had like a bloodline civil war. So you had brother against brother, brother against cousin, and it's just it's such a good storyline, and it's really hard to explain if you've never watched wrestling. But if
Hmm.
you, I tell you, if you go to YouTube and you just search it, it's really easy to get involved in. And I swear, like after the first maybe 5 minutes of watching it, you're gonna get locked in. Like, wait a minute, this man crazy. He manipulated his own cousin. Wait, they gonna fall in line
Wow.
with him and just terrorize everybody? Wait, that ain't
Wow.
done with him. What, like you're just gonna be like, whoa, what's going
Wow.
on? Great, just great storytelling. And it's like, how is this going on in wrestling? That's honestly what got me back into wrestling because I started watching it
Mm.
when I was younger.
Hmm.
And like I said, I'm a John Cena fan, and so I saw he was on one episode, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. And then I was like, what is going on with this? And I was just sucked in like that.
Wow. That is so funny. You know, here I've been watching a lot of like YouTube clips and on TikTok. Like I'm on the side where it talks about wrestling, and then I love the fact that a lot of wrestlers that I grew up on that's either retired or in between or whatever, they do different interviews and talk about different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I I was telling I'll be showing Audrey about like things or whatever because it's just such a trip. I think the biggest story arc, I believe, it's a few, but I think probably my favorite one, I think, will probably have to be the rise and fall of evolution.
Oh my gosh, yes. Now that
Because it's,
people, yeah,
man,
people have been saying that it's better than the evolution story.
what?
Yes, yes. And I know what you're talking about. Evolution was huge, and that was a really good storyline, very intense. And I would say the bloodline kind of used the kind of same elements of the evolution
Mm-hmm.
storyline and
Mm-hmm.
just made amazing improvements to it and took it a step
Wow.
further. Like, just imagine
Wow.
if the evolution storyline went just a little bit longer, added a couple more layers.
Mm.
That's Bloodline.
Yeah, because I think for me at the time I could like Ric Flair did a great job with me not standing him. Of course, I never liked Triple H at all. I don't
Right.
even like even when he wasn't like the heel, I feel like I still had a hard
Mm-hmm.
time liking him. It's just like at the end of the day, like he says, the dirtiest player in the game. Like he's just,
Yeah.
but I think what made it big is like what came out of that. Like Triple H's career to a certain degree was already pretty much established. He had wrestled against all of the greats from
Mm-hmm.
having a rivalry with Shawn Michaels to having run-ins here and there between The Rock, Stone Cold, and the McMahon family. Um, to just generation D Generation X, as a whole. Uh, and I may have said the Undertaker earlier, stuff like that or whatever. But it's just the fact of like, man, like first to start off with freaking Randy Orton, man, how he was just
Mm-hmm.
up on Batista's shoulders. They turned on him, and then the whole thing of like when Batista just giving him the thumbs up at the sign of the
Oh
contract,
yeah, and then he turned out Triple
turned it
H.
down and turned on Triple H and slammed them through that freaking table. Because I think it was one of those things we have been so used to the bigger guys or the guys that's very popular and talented like it's always so many aware of like that, but literally like Batista's career just skyrocketed. You know what I'm
Skyrocket.
saying?
Yep.
And just it just exploded. And it was just the fact seeing somebody that become that popular, that big, that buff, all of those components and be able to hold through and be believable instead of just a joke or just like, oh, you won't last long. But
Yes.
it was good, man. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. I might have to watch that.
I'm telling you, the bloodline storyline is very much like that. And like how Evolution helped to skyrocket Batista and Randy Orton's career, this storyline, like tag team wrestling, it's a huge thing, but it's nothing like,
Not
you know,
like it
being
used to
that
be.
solo act. And
Yeah.
so for the Usos who went from 10 years ago being on the pre-show, now they main evented WrestleMania this past April. They're the
Mm,
first tag team to ever main event WrestleMania. Like that's huge for them.
yeah.
But like that's what this storyline has done for them to elevate them.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. And Rakesh, not yeah, Rakesh is their dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy, man. That
Yeah.
is so crazy. Well, that's dope, Blaze. That's dope. Well, I know we wrestling. You can get into it
Yeah.
for real long, but I'll
We can
let you
keep
jump on
going
that
on and
last
on
one.
and on. Okay, yeah. And then last night I started The Bear, which
Okay.
is on FX.
Oh, so you did
And
start it last night.
I told you I started it last night,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
That
didn't
was
look at
after you
this
saw the.
document. I didn't look at this document. This is my first time looking at this document. I only watched the first episode and like maybe the first 10 minutes of the second episode. But it's a good episode. I mean, it's a good show. It's about this guy who recently moved back home. His brother passed away. His brother owned this restaurant called I think it's called the Beef. And he decided to move back home and take it over. But what I'm noticing just from these first two episodes is he got some trauma that he needs to really
Mm,
unpack. Um, and so that's one element, but it's a really intense show. I wonder if it's like true how working in the food industry is because when they in the
mm,
kitchen, I'm just like, oh my gosh, can one person please talk at a time? What is going on? But
mm,
it's a really fun. It's intense, but it's also kind of lighthearted, like most
mm,
stuff.
mm.
Um, I'm excited to watch the rest of it. I heard the second season is phenomenal, so I'm excited.
Dope. Yeah, I was telling Blaze earlier. That's been on my watch list for a while. It's on. You can watch it on Hulu. Ain't that right, Blaze?
Yeah, you can watch it on Hulu.
Yeah, you can watch it on Hulu. So it's been there a while. And my wife, she used to be a waitress for a few years, like especially working her way through college and stuff like that. So, and we used to talk about things. Plus, we really like food, like going to restaurants at times. And of course, she can cook. I like to cook here and there and stuff like that. So, I'm definitely interested to see it because I've heard from many TikTok users that it's one of their top shows in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out. As far as my list, during the plane ride, I actually got to watch Halo, the series
Okay.
that was started. I think it premiered maybe last year, maybe I think it was on Paramount. Big Halo fan. Um, grew up
Like the
watching.
video
I mean,
game?
oh yeah, like
Okay.
I remember playing it on my Xbox and stuff like that. It's something my dad and I used to bond with. So when I saw it, but I will say, just like a lot of shows that's, sometimes, I mean, a lot of games that's adapted into shows, I get a little nervous, especially if it's really heavy sci-fi, because it's just like what money you're going to put behind it, all the stuff like that. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear, a lot of great things from it. But I will say, besides, one particular thing that I mean, it's out now. It's not a big deal. I will say the only thing that kind of threw me off as I was watching is that literally Master Chief took off his helmet for like a good
Mm-hmm.
chunk of the first episode, I believe. So I was curious about like what, encouraged him to do that. But either way, I got to see two and a half because I ran out of time on the plane. But I am interested in actually finishing because the more I kept on watching, the more I was starting to really enjoy it. So But yeah, so I watched that. Watched the Stan Lee documentary that came out recently on Disney Plus. That was really good. The approach to it was very unique. It was almost kind of like he was kind of they used Stan Lee's voice to kind of narrate his life in a sense, along with some talking heads.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, but like the way they did it on the graphic side, like you saw old pictures to old videos, to archive footage of just him over time, all the way close to present, right before he passed away. But a good chunk of it at times, they were kind of with his narration, it'll be toy figures that they would kind of fix up in a house or like that you would kind of see in a house kind of thing. And it'll be
Hmm.
kind of mimicking him in different moments that he'll tell about it. So very unique approach. I will
That sounds
say,
cool.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty cool to the approach. I will say, just for people that's really into documentaries, I will say that I felt like they really Disneyed this up. I feel like
Hmm.
I feel like they didn't want to go too deep unless he was just blessed to have a life that was pretty much straightforward. And there are, it's maybe hard to believe, but there are people like that. But I feel like they could have went a little bit deeper. They did it a little bit when there was a conversation of who created what and who should have credit over who, between two artists who helped create Spider-Man and a lot of other characters early on. And they even included like some either radio on the radio voiceover or whatever they did to kind of talk about it. But it was definitely kind of like mostly surface level for the most part, but it's not a waste of time. I feel like it was good. It's some things that I learned growing because that's why I've been wanting to learn more about like how did you get to this point even before
Hmm.
getting to Blade. And so very interesting as far as most of his journey to getting to the Marvel comic books. But after that, I kind of almost felt like I knew everything, or I'm kind of like a course kind of thing. But not to keep going about it. It's definitely worth the watch. Pretty short as well, just a little bit over an hour. So
Oh, okay,
um,
cool. The
yeah,
storytelling aspect of it sounds really interesting.
yeah. It's very cool how they do it, and of course, like Stan had a really good way of just telling, like just speaking, and his voice
Hmm.
is just something that you can just sit and listen to that's not monotone and it's good. So yeah, so I got to watch that not too long ago. We recently watched over the weekend Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile.
That sounds familiar.
That is about Bundy, who was a serial
Okay.
killer.
Oh, I think I
Um,
watched that.
oh, you did? Was Zac Efron?
Yes, I have watched this.
Yeah.
Okay.
What did you think about that? Not to have a discussion within a discussion, but what did you just a quick thought, if you can even remember it, if you yeah, you might not can remember.
I can't really remember. So I honestly can't remember. Is that the one? Because I remember the year that came out, another
Mhm.
Ted Bundy thing came out. So is that the one that focuses on his wife?
And so like because this is on Netflix, this is a
Hmm.
Netflix original, and then they dropped the tapes, which I think is like a documentary, like
Hmm.
all that. And I mean kind of it does a really unique it's a very unique approach to kind of doing what they did with Dahmer to a certain degree, as far as like not necessarily showing his why, but at least showing the moment that he met his wife and how things kind of grew over time. But you do get a good glimpse of how his actions impacted her passively.
I what I remember, I guess, taking away or liking about it is
Mm-hmm.
that it put things in perspective because I remember, people were like, how did she not know? How did
Yeah,
she not know? And it's like, well, just because you're married to somebody doesn't mean you know everything about them.
right.
We all have lives outside of the people that we are with, or just the people that we see. When we
Mm-hmm.
close this Zoom meeting, your life is still gonna go on.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
what you're doing. My life is still gonna go on. And so I think that's one thing I took away from that movie. But as
Hmm.
far as anything else, I don't remember it well enough.
Gotcha. I mean, yeah, yeah, I definitely can get where you're coming from with that. They told it in a way that it could be very moving on just because the way they told it, and then I can move on. I'll say this, I get how you cannot remember as much because unlike other biopics, just non-horror related or even Dahmer's like biopic series, they don't give much detail of what he's done. They just focus more on him as how he can come off to other people while
Hmm.
hiding what he was truly doing. Like you literally don't even, see anything that he does except for one time. And that was just very passive, close to the
Mm.
end. So
Yeah,
um
I
yeah.
think what a lot of people in Hollywood are trying to do is just trying to make sense of things. But when people do these really horrible things, it's really hard to think like why and how. And so I think they're
Hmm.
trying to make sense of it. Like this is why this person is who they
Hmm.
are. Or this is why
Hmm.
nobody
Hmm.
knew that this was who they
Hmm.
really were.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's okay to have that, but also it is important to show like you don't want to romanticize somebody that
Yes.
horrible too
Yes.
much. And I mean, me personally, I don't feel like we should make fiction movies about them at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I say that because I say that out of respect to like their victims, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're putting their victims' families in a place where they almost have to relive that
Hmm.
situation. You know, I
Hmm.
think about
Hmm.
when Dahmer came out, you know, if I was a family member and I'm logging on to, Netflix, that's like dang, like I gotta avoid Netflix for whoever knows how long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I can see it. I guess I could see like both sides to a certain degree, but definitely if there's a solid documentary out there and it's under your production, the biggest question I would have is why do we need to tell a narrative version of the documentary?
Exactly.
Um, because then at certain points, especially depending on budget and all this stuff like that, and what filmmaker and what the actors feel comfortable with, or really the whole crew feel comfortable with, um, something sooner or later may have to be falsified, or
Mm-hmm.
fictional, not true or whatever like that. And it's like, okay, then it turns honestly into pure entertainment to a certain degree. So,
Yep.
so yeah, it's a very high responsibility if you do certain things like that because even certain things, say for instance, Straight Outta Compton, certain things weren't cool what was shown and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. But it's like that's the truth or whatever. So it's a thin line, but I do see like both sides. But if anything, I definitely support documentaries first. And
I do
then,
too. Yeah.
but if it's something that can just be pushed even more, or you're gonna at least like we were talking about with the new movie that's coming out about is it Priscilla?
Mm-hmm. With
Yeah, about
Elvis, yeah, Priscilla,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it's telling her story behind it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different way of doing it. And maybe that's something, a better approach. If you're gonna do narrative, at least tell the story of a survivor, or something of that matter, or like say um the police officer that's doing, the groundwork, the research work or whatever like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
kind of do it in that way. And then I feel like it takes a little bit it takes away more from the evil doing and the doer, um, and focusing more on like the encouragement of like, hey, if you see certain things, or if you're in the police force, or if you're in the neighborhood, like look for these things, think about these things, and I feel like that brings more strength to power in a sense, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, yeah, but yeah, saw that. It's pretty wild. I also watched I See You. That was a film that I think Aja and I both, or Aja ran across on TikTok, and you and a TikToker was like, "Hey, highly recommend this," and that was pretty good. It's a minor thriller kind of thing. Trying to figure out where things go. It does have a really good twist in it. So I highly recommend. Very short to watch, under an hour. But highly recommend that. And then of course, last but not least, I'm a Virgo, and I think it's the perfect time to go ahead and jump on into it. What you think, Blaze?
All right. I Am a Virgo was a wild ride.
Yay, yay. So first,
Um,
Blaze. Yeah,
mhm.
go ahead, jump on it,
No,
jump
I was
on
just
it,
gonna
jump on
say, for those that aren't familiar with it, Boots Riley used a lot of surrealism, magical realism, all of that, pretty much to create that story. Um, and it's a satire as well, specifically on like capitalism. And it stars some pretty heavy hitters. Jarrell Jerome, you may remember him from Moonlight or When They See Us.
it. Yes.
Brett Gray, who was in On My Block. Um, Carmen, I don't know how to say her last name. I don't want to mess it up, but she played Sister in Sparkle. It was Sister, right? Yeah, I
Maybe.
think her name was Sister. I think her name was Sister.
Yeah.
In Sparkle. Mike Epps is in it. Somebody else that's pretty popular in it. The guy from Justified is in it. Walton Goggins Jr. So it has some pretty big stars in it. And like, like we said earlier, Boots Riley wrote it, directed, produced it, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And kudos to him. Like this is actually his second project. Um, Sorry to Bother You was his first. And I learned when he came to speak in Northwest Arkansas a few months back, I think maybe in February. He talked about how he, got to the point of being able to do Sorry to Bother You and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, he actually was/is a musical artist first. And then he transitioned into the film side. So that's how all these
I
things
didn't know
kind
that.
of.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know it either, but it was actually a fan right beside me or whatever of his music that he knew before apparently getting into him in film. So, but yeah, like Blaze said, this is definitely a very unique story. Like somebody said online, is even though it's purposeful as far as like the writing and the storytelling behind it, especially focusing on capitalism. Um, it's very fun to see Black people in this type of space.
Yes, it really, really is. And to not like the issue, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
is capitalism. But
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes a lot of Black filmmakers when they focus on like a Black um ensemble cast and stuff, they usually have to talk about, like racism and things like that. And racism is a part of capitalism,
Mm-hmm.
but it was nice to kind of go beyond just racism and talk about something else. But
Mm-hmm.
just the whole element of doing the surrealism with Black people, we don't get to see Black people in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And as a former English teacher, English major, all that, writing magical realism, surrealism is really, really hard
Oh
because
yeah.
you have to you're writing something and it's a satire, so you're trying to make a comment on something. You're trying to use these elements of magicalism, but you want people to understand it, but you don't want it to be
Mm-hmm.
dumbed down. Like so, it's very
Yeah.
intricate, and so I just love to see Black people in that space. So come on,
Yeah.
Black people.
Yeah. And like you said on the surrealism side, just like, yeah, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna give you a little bit of fantasy or like, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people saying being very absurd, but I feel like if we would have had a 13-foot brother in our neighborhood, I feel like that's how it would have probably been like. And so,
Mm-hmm.
besides some of the dramatic things of like the long, what's that, flying in the air, like getting ready to punch, stuff like
Yeah. Oh
that.
my gosh.
It's
Like
like you get up there, it's like, you know,
the fact that
but
you even
yeah,
try to fight a giant, though, like my guy,
and
my
barely can
guy.
understand anything he was saying, man. I'm like,
Oh
what?
my gosh. I was like, I don't know what you're saying, but I don't agree.
Right.
In most
So
cases, I don't agree with what you said.
exactly. So, but no, like it was very dope. I think that's the thing. At first, I will say the first episode, and for those of you who haven't seen it, but you just want to know we're talking how we feel about it before you jump into it and you don't mind spoilers.
Spoiler
I
alert!
will
Spoiler alert!
right. I will say that the first episode was kind of like, okay, that's cool, but it didn't pull me to the second episode. So I will say, in my personal opinion, I don't know if it was the same for Blaze. The first episode didn't pull me to the second one. I had to want to go to the second episode. Honestly, the first episode could have been a nice one and done short, and then that would have been it to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? But once you get into that second episode, you're gonna want to know how things just kind of play out. You know what I'm saying? And I really do appreciate them going there when it comes to like how would society in 2023 will react to something like this. I love how they kept up the mysteriousness of them finding out about Cootie, who is the main character in the 13-foot Virgo, what his uncle and aunt and a certain aunt
Mm-hmm.
what they meant by so many things or whatever like that, but it definitely stretches the imagination of how these things are even on a relationship side. And Blaze, I would ask you, like, did you
Mm-hmm.
realize that Flora had powers, or did you think at first, or did you think that was just all in his head because he was just so infatuated with her? Because I thought it was
Um,
just in his head.
So the first scene when she was like moving really fast, I was
Yeah.
like, is that in his head? But then they changed camera angles and the focus wasn't on her and on him. It was him just ordering and it was still doing it. I was like, oh, she has powers. But then nobody acknowledged it. And so I was like, well,
Yeah.
maybe she doesn't. And then, later on down the line, I was like, okay, so I was right. She does have powers.
Yeah, man, because like when it finally hit me, I guess I didn't pick up on it or whatever, but it finally hit me when they went on their, I think it was their first date,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he froze and everybody just started freezing around. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
where is
Yeah,
this
that
about to turn?
confirmed it for me. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
so I was
yeah,
right.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, what? But yeah, I
Or
was
that
wondering.
technique. So does Jones also have a superpower? Like, is her superpower storytelling? Because
I don't
Cootie
know.
called it that.
You
He
know
told
what?
at the end, he said, use your power to show the hero what you're talking about. And so she was like, just give me 3 minutes. And then, she did what she always does. Like the black thing pops up and it's like they jump into the world that she's explaining.
But what if the bigger message was just because you're not 13 feet tall or you can't move fast doesn't mean your voice isn't your power.
I'm happy you said that because one of the things I loved about the show once I finished reading it was I was like, I'm happy they did not make Cootie the hero, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because usually when in a show or in a movie, when somebody is different than others, they elevate them to become the hero. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, he just a 13-foot tall dude.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing about him set some things into motion, but Jones is the hero in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always throughout the show kind of wonder like what does Cootie represent for black men? And I almost
Mm-hmm.
wonder, was it like an exaggeration on every time we see especially a young black boy like in high school and everything like that, or young man, I would say, that's a little bit above average on height, especially if he's like 6'2" and
Mm-hmm.
above. The first thing we be asking, like, oh man, what sports you play? You play basketball and stuff like that.
Definitely. Definitely.
And
Because that sport
yeah,
agent immediately was like, let's see if we can get you on some sports. And then he couldn't get him on some
exactly.
sports. And so he got him into quote unquote hip hop clothing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever
Mm-hmm.
asphalt royalty
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. And it was almost like him not making it into sports almost did a play off of the fact that everybody isn't made for just because you tall doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
you're made to be an athlete. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, if they playing off of that, it's like, okay. And then, like you said, maybe instead of like being a rapper, you become this model who fits into what the industry wants you to look like or say or do
Mm-hmm.
or whatever like that to make them more money. But then in hindsight, you pretty much make yourself look like an ass, you know?
Yeah.
And um, so yeah,
And
I
he
really, yeah,
basically said that too. He was like, I just need the money. He's like, he
yeah,
said that to Jones. He was like, I know this looks something or suspect or whatever, but I need the money.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's
That's
like,
life.
yeah, and it's life, you know what I'm saying? And we have to make those choices, but I feel like the deeper message of it, just because I feel like this is the playing field that, Boost created, is that, you know, be careful what you sign up to make money for, and what it does to you in hindsight. You know what I'm saying? Because, if I'm not mistaken, because Audrey kind of picked up on it, like the clothes end up affecting him, like it end up making him sick, giving him a rash, I
Mm-hmm.
think. You know what I'm saying? To where, you know, yeah, you might finally come out of it, or you done did things you think you're out of, but you don't know what the effects will be long term on you by
Mm-hmm.
putting yourself in these circles, in these groups,
Mm-hmm.
in these industries not having a mentors. It's kind of
It's
almost go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was based off of what you was just saying. I was gonna say it's kind of how like in real life, how we as people, we as Black people, whenever we do things that compromise kind of who we are, um, it may not have a physical
Mm-hmm.
consequence, but that mental,
Mm-hmm.
it may mess up
Mm-hmm.
that mental health. And so instead of showing the mental health, they show the physical by giving
Mm-hmm.
him that rash.
Yeah. And on top of that, at the end of the day, was he not at the end of the day, all he was wanting to do is make money to eat burgers?
Yeah.
That's
Burgers he
it.
didn't even like
Burgers he didn't even like, but just because he
to
wanted to
take
do
out
it,
Flora.
the takeout floor. And it's like, hey, kudos. Like, if you interested in somebody, yeah, pursue them. But at the end of the day, look what you're doing just to make money, just to get the things that you want. Like you selling
Mm-hmm.
out yourself in hindsight to get the things that you want. And it's just like, what is left of yourself to even enjoy what that is that you're
Mm-hmm.
going for,
What the
Um,
Bible say? What profits a man who was it sells his soul and
oh,
gains the world or something like that?
yeah, 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 it loses everything.
Who
Cause it's a
get
story.
yeah.
Yeah, like it's a story of when, Jesus is talking to the young king, you know what I'm saying? And he's just not willing to give up his riches. And so, but yeah, no, like it's definitely like that. So I really love it's a lot of themes in this, man. It's a lot of passive things that if you don't know, if you're not going into this trying to get something out of it, you may have missed it and you probably just now picking up on it as we talk about it. Unless you
Mm-hmm.
kind of got your thoughts going or wherever like that. But it was so much symbolism
Yeah.
in this or whatever. And the funniest thing at the end of the last episode when pretty much Jones, has her whole like spiel about everything. It's like even though it was a little bit on the longer side, everything made sense. It wasn't extra. And the crazy thing is it was one moment where it wasn't like a tangent, but Boost was kind of growing. He was answering the question in a very long way, but he was talking about capitalism for a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
like Audrey and I kind of talked about how at one point we was like, how in the world he's about to wrap this back around to the actual question, but he did, which is really dope. But now watching this, it makes more sense why he brought up the whole capitalism aspect, just because um, overall, like it seems like this is what this was about is capitalism. Because at the end of the day, the root of it was money and access. Like the
Yep.
things that besides Cootie being sheltered from the public eye at the end of the day, but the results of that was either going to be death and or profit
Mm-hmm.
from those who oppressed him, you know what I'm saying, from their oppressors. And so and I love the passive history about like what has happened to people that look just like you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, and things happen because that is true. I don't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure you heard the story of the woman um who once she had died and everything like that, they
Put
um
her body on display in a museum.
yeah, they did that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so like that's true, and so many things, Blaze. What were some other things that kind of like stood out to you or whatever, like just in hindsight or just as you was going through it, even on the more lighter hearted side, because I know we hitting the heavy, but it was really
Mhm.
good.
The show that they watched, Parking Ticket,
Yeah.
was very introspective, and it reminded me a lot of other cartoon shows that have a lot of satire in them, like
Hmm.
Boondocks, The Simpsons, South Park, things like that, where they are kind of provocative, trying to make people laugh, but they also
Hmm.
have these elements in them in which they are trying to kind of get something across.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because that's something that we experience in life. But like I
Hmm.
think often since I watched it, I think often like I didn't like I watched it 5 weeks ago. I've been thinking about that one moment where he's talking about like snow is falling on everyone. I was like, that's so deep, like because it's so true.
Yeah.
Snow is just falling on it. Like everybody's going through something. And
Yeah.
sometimes somebody may be going through it really, really hard.
Yeah. Somebody
And
has
I'm
a
just like it
shed, somebody don't.
mm-hmm. And Scat was just like in in the store watching this video and he was just like locked on it.
Hmm.
And then went back to like, oh, this show's a funny show. And I'm like, how are y'all little kids? Or well, they're not kids. They was like 19. But I'm like, how are y'all so invested in this show? Because it like they had such deep moments. But
Hmm.
also when he was at the store and the guy gave him the video of the lost episode and they
Yeah,
showed the
yeah,
lost
yeah.
episode, that was so cool too, because they always see and when I say always, I'm talking about the actual characters. They see this show, Parking Ticket, and it's the guy that says "boy oi oi," and they laugh,
Hmm.
ha 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 ha. And then in this last episode, they show his like life story, and I feel like he's trying to say something in that moment, Boots
Hmm.
Riley, and I don't know exactly what he's trying to say, but I thought it was a very interesting um moment of the episode because I think we do and actually now that I'm thinking about it, it could be about black people in a way and how in our history we have been used for comic relief in a way and
Hmm.
nobody looks at how we may feel about certain
Yeah,
things
yeah.
and I mean, it can be above Black people, so it can be about other things as well. But how we
Hmm.
don't really check on people, how we really don't make people feel included outside of the one thing that maybe makes us pay attention to them for a brief
Hmm.
second.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I thought that was a good little moment in the show. I didn't like that Scats had to die. Like that was sad. I
But you know
understood
what's
like for the
crazy?
plot he had to, but
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, like you said about the snow, it started snowing on him.
right. Hmm.
It started snowing on him, you
And as he
know.
was dying, he was repeating back what the guy
Hmm.
said. Snow is falling on it. And I was just like, no, no. And I like dang, like that to me, that episode was the episode where it should have hit people like, oh, this is about something big.
Oh
This is
yeah.
about something big. And if you didn't know in that moment that it was about capitalism, you knew it was about something because when he walked in that
Hmm.
hospital and that woman was like, "You got to go somewhere else." What? Like he literally got something sticking out of him, bleeding, and you telling him he got to go somewhere else
Just because he ain't got insurance.
just because he don't have insurance. But you think about how many people who die because
Hmm.
they don't have insurance, or how many people who think like we just had a pandemic, COVID. How many
Yeah.
people didn't go to the hospital because they didn't have insurance? How many
Yep.
people got turned away because they didn't have insurance?
Yep.
Them COVID numbers were probably up because we were turning people away for
Hmm.
things like that, all because of capitalism. And it's like, why is how is health not like a basic need? It's so crazy that you can monetize that.
Yeah.
That is such a huge business that we put the money in the business before we actually put people.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like it's so crazy. It's like we live in a place where the pressure is put on us as a people to rely on the opinion of the medical field and the doctors and stuff like that. But then it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to obtain that service or good service or consistent service
Mm-hmm.
to advise us, to help us heal and all this stuff like that. And then when we get to a point to where we try and do like what our ancestors used to do is pretty much like, hey, we don't have to go to a doctor for every single thing, but it's certain things in the house or we grow out a garden or wherever like that that can
Mm-hmm.
help us, then that's when
Them
it's an
home
issue.
remedies, yeah.
Yeah, home remedies, and then that's the issue. I mean, say for instance, like the whole thing people talk about, put an onion in the sock or whatever like that. That's a home remedy. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And so is it's a lot to it, and I'm really happy. Like I'm gonna be honest, it was like sorry to bother you. I followed it. It was kind of hard to kind of give, but I feel like it was kind of like a working hard as a donkey and all this stuff like that kind of thing. But I will say I think I had a easier and more enjoyable and impactful or enlightening time of this project. And I'm glad that it just did right. There were certain elements that I wish it could have elevated. It kind of went a little bit longer with it. Almost kind of made me feel like here and there at times that I wanted that they had to cut it down because I feel like we were told about the hero, but I don't feel like we was told as much as we probably could have. But then at the same time, I was like, I wonder is this kind of like the documentary episode in Swarm, but
Mm-hmm.
just talking about the hero, like it's kind of completely set aside away from the rest of Oakland, and we focusing on this guy who has a building that literally moves around him. He doesn't move
Mm-hmm.
to do his thing, but
Which is saying something, you know. Here
yeah,
he is, a quote unquote hero, saving the world, but he's so closed off from the world.
so closed off, like literally like he's so busy and doesn't even come out to where like even when he's reminiscing, he's going to a dang set to reminisce on his
Mm-hmm.
childhood, or even when it comes to like you said, like everything that he needs dang near is in that building. Like he don't even date people. He has an
Mm-hmm.
assistant who dates people for him before they
Mm-hmm.
move to the next step. So many things, and that's what it's true a lot of it's about a lot of times, you know what I'm saying? It's just like a lot of people be having a lot to say about things that they're not connecting to or have
Yep.
any connection with at all.
That's why,
Um,
like at the end, after Jones told him, he didn't try to fix the situation. He just left. And some people
mhm.
may be like, "How you just gonna leave and not do anything? How can he do something when he literally just got educated on the system on the situation? He doesn't know what steps need to be done. So he does need to leave before he causes more harm than good. He needs to
Yeah,
go educate himself more and figure out what should be done before he just does something. And that's saying something in itself, because there's so many people who want to be allies and they want to help people, but they don't really know. They need to educate themselves first. They need to listen first. But no, they want to do, and it's like, stop. Just stop and learn first.
oh, like Blaze, you hit the nail on the head. Hero was the toxic ally.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was trying to figure out, okay, is he going to be racist or where the case may be, but he literally thought he was doing the best he could, and at times like he was like being nice with folks. Because like the one thing when they was in the doing the execution of the guy, he talked so good about him, uplifting him, all this stuff like that or whatever. He was cool with his assistant who was also black, all these different type of things or whatever. So it's never like he came off of like he's hunting black people, but he thought he was like the greater good being brought
Mm-hmm.
into a community that he had no idea of the why they were even in a situation like they was. And like you said, being educated and basically saying that, hey, you are part of this system who
Mm-hmm.
capitalize like who you are the beneficiary of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
And
And you
then
know
yeah.
what? Now that you say all of that too, I think the hero, in a sense, represents police and how we have a lot of police
Oh yeah.
who are policing communities that they don't know anything about.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's one of the biggest issues, and how police brutality happens is because they're in these neighborhoods and in these communities where they don't know the people. They don't know
Hmm.
the community. And so they're making honestly biased decisions based
Hmm.
off of little information because they don't know who they are policing.
Exactly, because like a police officer that's connected to a community or want to invest in the community, they will have an easier time setting up programming to educate the community about certain things, the right and the wrong with the
Mm-hmm.
kids, or just building a bond with the kids or wherever like that. Because everybody knows um, the more people that you want, the people that you want to make proud of you are the main ones you don't want to let down. It's not always the case that you're going to be perfect at it, because at moments you're going to be thinking about you, you're not going to realize, hey, what I do in this moment is going to affect somebody else. But at the same time, like knowing that you have that officer in your community that doesn't even have to have a suit on, just come as they are, sit down and talk with you, have ice cream with you, come to an after school event, come support you at a
Mm-hmm.
game. Like that's empowering. And it makes it feel that, from children to adults, that you're seen and you're not seen as just a person of color, you know what I'm saying, or a number or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I do believe there's multiple layers that he used the hero for, um to get his point across, and he did. If you just take your time out to watch it, he literally just did a great job with it. It definitely, like you said, with all of this, for us to get all this out of 7 episodes, none of the episodes were an hour long, and it's a little lighthearted at times, and the characters are very fun to watch and everything like that. Like that just shows that this in particular, like it shows that you have to be a really great storyteller to get something like this across in a surreal way. And to be honest, honestly, to have it in a predominantly black, um, with a predominantly black experience in a sense, as far as it being grounded. And as the song say, following the lives of everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man. I mean, this is really great, and I feel like it's crazy talking to you about it. Like it's making me realize how even more I appreciate his work that he did in this, and I'm glad that I personally feel like he got a lot of things across in a very subliminal way that I feel like is one of the most powerful ways at times. Because yeah, you may be
Mm-hmm.
laughing at it, you may even think some things are like absurd or whatever case may be, but then you sit back and think about it, it's like, dang, like is that what they were trying to say, or
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, really dope series. Glad I was able to get it on your radar and everything. So Blaze, do you got anything else before we close it on out?
I mean, we did cover some really heavy stuff about the show.
We did. We did.
It's when you look at when you think about the show in hindsight, that's where the heavy stuff comes in
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
But it does have, I would say, it has pretty much half and half, maybe even more lightheartedness. I mean, there's I mean, can you imagine drag racing with a 13-foot guy in the back? Like
Yeah.
that's crazy. The intimate scene was
Yeah.
wild. Um,
The
learning about
fights.
Flora's experience,
Yeah. That was really good. That
that
was
was
really
really
good.
good. That was really good. I remember one element where like her parents thought that she was autistic, for
Hmm.
example.
Hmm.
Like because I mean they didn't know she had a superpower, but I thought that was an interesting element because we're seeing a lot now where, parents are paying attention to like different traits that their children are having,
Yeah.
and taking
Yeah.
that proactive step to, getting them tested to see do they need something, and realizing like it's okay if they do
Yeah.
that they do.
Yeah.
It's not I don't want to say it's not a big deal because it may be a big deal for them, but it's not bad, or it's not you shouldn't
Hmm.
feel ostracized
Yeah.
or scared or something.
Yeah.
They just need a little support, and that's okay. We all need a little
Exactly.
support.
Exactly. Like you said, it's just more so, okay, if there is something different, whether it's even not even a mental thing, you just have a different family member in your life or, your child or whatever the case may be. It's just the encouragement and the support to work with them through whatever they need to do to be understood. And I think that's the biggest thing. And maybe that's what it was. We were seeing her superpower all along, but it really took Cootie seeing her and recognizing
Mm-hmm.
her for what she is, just as a person, to bring that out to where she felt attracted and want to be, more than just, a high and by, you know what I'm saying? So yeah.
And to add to that, like I don't know if for sure Jones had a superpower, but
Hmm.
but I would like to think in a way that when Cootie asked her to use her superpower, that in a way they were trying to get across that we all have a superpower in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, we do.
We all have a purpose, we all have something that makes us unique or makes us special,
Hmm.
and we just gotta use it. And we
Yeah.
gotta use it for good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I feel like that was one of the most uplifting things in it, especially with everything that was going on and everything like that. And I just feel like everything was just very realistic to each character. It just made a lot of sense. And there was rarely any moment where I'm like, okay, come on now. Like, no, he created a world that made sense. It was never too much, had to get used to it at the beginning in the first episode. But he just did a really good job with this, especially for something that we really don't see much of, especially for Black stories. So kudos to Bruce Riley, definitely ready for whatever's next. And if you haven't watched it and you want to just listen to us talk about it first or whatever, I highly encourage you to check it out. I feel like even though we talked so much about it that we we didn't really give away the actual story itself. So I still feel like
Mm-mm.
at the end of the day, you should definitely check it out. And if you have checked it out, but you heard what we said, you want to go back, we would love to hear, what you thought about it as well. Like once we put this out on our platforms and everything like that, or message us and stuff. So, but very fun project. Love the storytelling. It's kind of ironic that it kind of fits almost with, again, my answer and just addressing the whole this or that early on that Blaze came up with. So overall, super dope. Super,
Yeah.
super dope. But other than that, Blaze, if you ain't got nothing else, sister, I think it's about our time to get on out of here.
All right. Well then, peace.
All right. Peace, y'all. Take it easy.